let's introduce ourselves. This is the Squad Games podcast. My name's Dakotah. This is Giacomo, and our two guests are from Once Upon a Kill Team.
Hello.
I'm Sean.
I'm Jason.
All right. We have
hello from the UK.
Yeah, nice. Sean and Jason. So, are you guys excited to talk a bunch of narrative and other stuff?
I'm really
We
excited.
love it.
Good. Now, I know that we've connected on Discord every now and then. I believe your guys' podcast is even older than ours. How long have you guys been doing Once Upon a Kill Team's podcast?
Ooh. 2022. I think we started early. We started
coming up on 3 years, I think.
Yeah, nearly 3 years.
July.
And the other cool thing is Sean and I had only briefly met once before we agreed to do a full podcast together. And we've subsequently become like really good friends. So Kill Team brings people together. There you go.
Exactly.
You're not wrong. I think we started
Also,
in 2022 as well.
yeah, just around then.
Around like April or May, whenever Knockman came out. You know, that was our
whenever
first
that one
box
came
set
out
that we talked about. So that's awesome. Now, how often do you guys release your guys' podcast, and what do you guys typically talk about on your podcast?
We're about every 3 to 4 weeks. It's kind of when we can fit it into the schedule and how quickly I can edit. Oh my gosh, we cover so much, Jason. Jason does all of our episode themes.
Yeah. So
I'm just personality.
no, well, yeah, so much more. Sean does all the editing, so he's the real star of the show. But what we're about, I guess, is we started because we really I totally got into Kill Team because of Spec Ops and the idea of playing narratively and building up your teams and that kind of thing. And we like to talk about that. There's been a bit of a shift in the direction of how we play narrative since Kill Team 24, but really we're about telling stories. We love kit bashing, proxying models, background, lore. We love all of that sort of side of things. I don't think either of us you would call exemplary amazing players. So
We are exemplary sportsmen, Jason. I will have that.
yeah, I'll go with that.
That's fair.
We're not going to be winning any tournaments, but we're usually having a lot of fun. I think it's fair to say.
That's fair. I would say that my first introduction to narrative, right, would have, other than Dungeons and Dragons, right, which is not narrative, but you know, it's in the same realm of possibilities. And playing that religiously, I would say it was all the way back in 2001 and 2002 when Battle for Middle Earth had their whole system, and it was pretty much all just what Spec Ops kind of was. Like, you could build your guys, they could die, they could get injured, all that kind of stuff. And that was just how you played Battle for Middle Earth, the strategy game back then, right? Giacomo, what about you? What was your introduction to narrative?
When we're coming from, like, let's say from a tabletop perspective, not just like D&D, I was playing Crusade. We played Crusade a lot in 8th edition when that was kind of a new thing for 40K. I've always been a fan of smaller scale games, so naturally it made sense to go into Kill Team. And I did play Spec Ops a little bit in the previous edition of Kill Team. I just didn't have as many people who wanted to play it, which is a little unfortunate, because it is a little more crunchy. So it's a little more work you do, and not everyone was on board with that. And now I think more people are on board with how narrative plays because it's it goes hand in hand with like the NPO mode. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll play that. That's like a narrative-driven thing for them.
It's so much more accessible now.
It is.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I didn't play Spec Op from last edition is because it was too much. The game was already a lot, and then I didn't want to have to remember everything else. So whenever I did play narrative, I just wouldn't keep track of anything. I wouldn't give myself any buffs. I would just play the guys, right? And I just like run inopportune, like all of my veteran guard would just have hand axes, as many hand axes as I could bring, and I would just run at Gene Stealers and try to kill them, right? In fact, mine and Giacomo's very first game we ever played together against back in 8th edition for 40K, I brought 120 guardsmen and the Avatar of Cain, versus his Space Marines, and he murdered all of my guys except for the Avatar. And Avatar just ran around and killed all of his guys, and I had a blast.
It's a great
Right?
time.
It was a great time. It was a great time.
As long as you weren't a guardsman.
Exactly. Now, both of you guys, you said you met briefly once. Where did you guys meet?
Yeah, so we are in London. We're based in London, or we at least work in London. And there is something called the London Wargaming Guild, which plays lots of different games, a lot of big 40k, Blood Bowl, lots of stuff. And they started a kill team section when Kill Team 21 came out. And there was a WhatsApp group that I joined, and I just said, "Does anyone play narrative?" And somebody said, "Yeah, I got you." Our good friend Sal started a narrative campaign, so we mostly just exchanged through WhatsApp. And I think we were both playing somebody else at a cafe,
Yes,
Boardroom
simultaneously.
Cafe, and said hi. But then we just WhatsApped each other. Go, somebody needs to start a podcast about narrative play, and yeah, that was where it began from. So, it's interesting. You say that it was difficult to find someone to play with. This is where having a sort of the pool of everybody in London really helped us, I think, because even though it's a niche within a niche, there were enough people that we always could find someone to play narratively with in London. It was
Well, someone was always curious as
blessed.
well.
Yeah, we were very blessed. I still
That's
are blessed.
awesome. Yeah, that's good. Now, something interesting about this edition, right, is Spec Ops is gone, right? I could 100% see why they did it. They'd have to redesign, 34 teams at the beginning of the edition, come up with 34 extra things, and add in probably, I don't know, like 200 pages or 150 pages to the rule book, right? Like,
It
obviously...
would be a tome.
Yeah. Obvious, and so something had to go, right? At least that's my assumption with Games Workshop, right? So being narrative players, it felt like they kind of killed it. But in the same time, I've kind of come around to a different idea of what narrative is in this edition. And I want to see what you two think, because you guys played so much Spec Op, and this edition completely removed the way you used to play, right? Like, how do you guys feel? And what do you guys think is like, do you think that its narrative is way worse right now, or do you think it's better for different reasons?
No, even though I sort of love Spec Ops, I think I've never been more excited about playing sort of narrative kill team than ever, really. I think our switch was instead of a lot of the admin you talked about was the thing that put a lot of people off, and getting rid of that, I think, was probably inevitable. Although I would say, just for anyone listening, we did convert the old Spec Op rules to Kill Team 24. So if anybody wants to play those, we can hand out a sheet.
Where can they find those?
On our Discord.
Oh.
If you maybe if you could generously link to that
Of course.
Of course.
in the notes.
That's why I asked, Giacomo.
Damn,
he's
they're
good.
good.
But
I'm a great plugger, you know?
but
Hopefully my wife didn't hear that.
We've switched to kind of more story-led narrative. So we've created several 3-game campaigns that you can do in a day, or with a buddy, or with a group. And over the course of each game impacts, the winning and losing of each game impacts the next game, and then a story is being told over 3 games. And we've done a few of those events now.
So it sounds similar. Sounds similar to another thing that I've read. That's really good, you know?
Yeah, Jason and I played through all of the Morok missions. We did a whole campaign together, and played them through sequentially, and I think that really kind of inspired the mentality, because I'm not sure because we had so long in between each game, we forgot to track anything, of course, and we just handed out a couple of battle honors to leaders or whatnot thematically. And
But that was so good.
Yeah.
We played. Sean was playing an Orc Commando unit infiltrating an Imperial Guard, Vet Guard forward operating base, because that's what Morok looks like. And over 8 games, it was brilliant. We had, some characters always came good. Other characters, like my sapper, never did anything. I think back in the days when sappers were quite good. But we had
Now
a
they're a
really good
million
time.
times worse.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
he just
But
wouldn't be on the table.
You are
But-
right. I brought him 17 games in a row, and the only thing he's ever killed was an NPO boss that appeared on his bomb.
You should learn your lesson.
And I didn't even kill him. I did 20 damage to him, and then a Rattling killed it instead with one shot. It made me very upset. Very upset.
But this is a great story.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, it's true. You can say that
Very
forever.
cinematic.
I will. I rage about it because he stole the kill from me. I was like, oh, the one thing my sapper could have done in 17 games, and you stole
But
it.
the
from me,
story stuck
Jason.
with you, and that's kind of what we're celebrating. So I think we've shifted from like a rules-based mentality to now being like, we want to play the movie in our head on the tabletop, and then be able to talk to our friends about it afterwards.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Well, something that's interesting is a guy out here in Southern California named Alex Squires. He developed a system called the Mosaik system, and the Mosaik system is like an add-on to Crit Ops or Approved Ops, I think it's called, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever talked to you about that? Have you
He's in
thought
the
about it?
Discord.
Oh, Alex is there.
of
Okay.
course.
We've already been
See,
in
I-
touch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Alex from before because he used to be on Strategic Advantage with the manual.
That's
Correct.
right.
And oh my god, I talked to them probably when they started up back in like the Beerinid days.
Wow, that's a long time ago now.
Yeah,
I used to listen to Beerinid in the shower. I did.
Well, there's confession, kids.
Yeah, he knew.
I
he
have
knew
no
his stuff.
shame.
He knew his
One
stuff
thing you'll
back
find out
then.
about I have no shame.
Yeah, 2018 Kill Team was a different time. It was a trip.
Yeah.
completely. So he's in the Discord. We've chatted about it a couple of times. I think we're going to have him come on the podcast sometime in June or July.
Okay, cool.
We're
Yeah.
gonna nerd out over some cool stuff.
Nice. Yeah, we've been working with Alex a lot on our own Mesozoic rules for the upcoming Grand Narrative at the Las Vegas Open with 36 players. And while Saya is developing all the story and how that kind of goes, we've been kind of working on the rules about it. And I think the most interesting thing about narrative right now is since it's so undefined, right, that it's kind of like an open sandbox. Like there's no rules saying you have to play Spec Ops, right? So now we can come in and do anything you want. Like you guys can run your own Spec Ops that you've, created from last edition to this edition, and then somebody else could run something completely different as long as they just put the work and effort into it. Something similar to Mesozoic or some other stuff, right? It's a very exciting world to be in because, as you guys both know, me and Giacomo, our background is in competitive kill team, right? We've run a bunch of events, thousands of players now at this point in time.
At this point, yes.
And, the Las Vegas Open and the All Valley Team Tournament are kind of our biggest accomplishments in the kill team sphere. But what's fascinating is that since the Strategic Advantage days, right, the entirety, in my opinion, the rule of cool has left the game, right? People want to play on Games Workshop Into the Dark, Games Workshop Volcus, Games Workshop this, Games Workshop that, right? And unfortunately, there's tons and tons of terrain and tons of maps and tons of things out there that you can add to Kill Team to make it cool, make it exciting, and make it fun, right? And I think that the community has lost a lot of that light and a lot of that glow. Kill Team has been pushed so much as such a competitive game. We have lost the ability to look at something and have fun with it. And also, I think competitive players are losing an edge because if you're playing on crazy maps, right, you have to figure out the best way to play on that crazy map in order to still win and do your best, which helps you as a competitive player as much as it helps you anything else. What do you guys think about that?
It's a new puzzle to solve rather than going, oh, it's map 6 on this terrain. I know exactly what to do, where to set up, what tack ups to take. Whereas if you go, here you go, have a look at this table, and they're like, bloody hell, I've never seen anything like this. What the hell have I got to do? And like, competitive people are seeking that challenge. And if it's solved, where's the fun?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I think a lot of competitive players are, like yourselves, swinging round to narrative because it is a solved state for the most part. And you're like, what's new? What's exciting? Because I know how to do all that, but I'm ready to challenge myself again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that me and Giacomo have been doing for a lot of our battle reports is we've been playing on like old arena maps, right? Which was amazing, and they're still great to this day, right? We've been playing, pulling out all sorts of terrain and just kind of going crazy. We're going to talk a little bit about the Boys Bash, which is a friendly competitive event that we ran. And friendly competitive just means that there's no competitive terrain, right? It's all crazy, right? There's snow maps. We tried a lot of like Into the Dark. We did Into the Volcus, you know?
That was a
Into
weird
the
one.
Dark on Volcus. Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
it's a
Big
Volcus. Yeah, you'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see. We'll bring him up in this podcast. Whoever's still listening to us will be able to see him. You might have to skip around and find in the video. And if you're listening to it, we'll probably also post stuff in our own Discord, right? So exciting stuff. But before we get to that, going back to the Mosaik system and saying that you've been having conversations with Alex, this is exciting to me because Alex has been helping me with a bunch of NPOs and a bunch of cards. I come up with a bunch of designs. I write them in my broken English, you know, all this, you know, bad stuff. And then Alex is like, okay, let me kill timify it. He's like, now it works, you see? And I'm like, Alex, you're the man, you know? But like, I've created like 17 brand new unique equipment items specifically for the Repentant Station, which is our event, right? And then those items can be played in Alex Squire's narrative, and Alex Squire's equipment stuff can be played in ours, you know, so on and so forth. Are you guys debating on doing something similar so that we can kind of have this worldwide, you know, limited edition card system, which is almost like Magic the Gathering, but cooler because we made them.
Well, we haven't got that far, but now
Okay.
I'm totally in. We've done it similarly ourselves without the cards. Normally at the back of our packets, we've got we've kind of simplified all the battle honors and everything down to we kind of pinched the gambit system from Ashes of Faith.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So you've got use it once and it's spent kind of things that you can use, you know, activate my trap card in on the battle zone. Or I've been using strategic assets. We've ported some of them across as well. So like maybe at the end of a mission, you've gained a strategic asset, but you have to roll randomly to see what one. Or it's a piece of rare equipment that replaces one of your equipment slots. And I think that's exactly what Alex had come up with as well.
It is. He has some that are like, hey, you have this scrap code. It takes place of one of your equipment cards. And then like after this game, you have to give it to your opponent, you know? So like you lose an equipment slot for that round, then your opponent has it. All that kind of trading cards and stuff.
I listened to him on your podcast a few episodes ago, and that particular one where something's really, really good, but you have to give it to your opponent for them to use in their next game. I thought that was genius. I really like that one.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff. And I think the hardest thing so far, other than Kill Team English, right? Because
the legalese.
I get really annoyed with the rules sometimes because somebody will say something, then I'll be like, okay, I've made a rule on it, and then I'll forget the question existed, you know, because I'm like, okay, well, yeah, no one knows what Games Workshop wrote right here, right? Like, for instance, can you counteract 2 inches through a door, Giacomo?
Technically, yes. It just depends on how you look at the ruling, right?
Technically, yes, but I think that you should be able to because you get minus 1 inch? No, because it doesn't move your move statistic, right?
Right. So then you have to add all the stuff up, and then you get to the answer.
Point is, right, I think community leaders tournament organizers, gentlemen like yourselves, that way. I think a lot of times when Games Workshop doesn't give us an answer in a timely manner, we have to try to answer some of those questions. Whether the community likes our answers or not, at least they know when they attend one of your guys' events, one of our events or something like that, or playing in your guys' narrative campaign, that all the rules should be kind of generally done like this. Now, I remember I was talking to you guys, and you said that you guys just started running some events, or at least you said 3 events? Yeah? How did those go?
Great. We say so myself. I mean, we've done 2 events ourselves where there was just single day events. We did one down in a place called Andover.
At Partisan Games.
At Partisan Games, lovely bunch of people if you go down that way. And this was one that Sean led on called Into the Depths. And it was 2 games, two regular games, one-on-one games, using either Beta Decima or Into the Dark. And then with the third game of the day was a 1v1v1.
A 4 for all.
A 4 for all, using, and this will sound familiar, Dakotah, using 2 different sets. So we had Into the Dark going into Beta Decima.
Amazing.
So it was a Beta Decima sandwich.
I love it. That's how we've been doing ours.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw the photos.
That was really, really fun. And then the second one we done was a team event. So we had Chaos players called Wake the Titans, and we had Chaos players trying to revive some Titans that were trapped in a labyrinth underground, and Imperial players were trying to stop them. And we had 2 teams. We had team captains who were able to give out gambits, and I like that because it meant you were, even if you individually didn't win your games, your team could still win, and that was quite fun. We played that at Arcanists, and then Arcanist Tavern in Hoxton, very fashionable Hoxton.
My highlight of that day, Jason, sorry to interrupt, is that Jason bought black and red capes for the team captains so that you can easily identify them. And
could you assassinate them?
Out,
steal their cape?
And instead of being a Star Wars evil guy, they were, what did you quote unquote them, Jason? They were a little bit more Red Riding Hood. In the fact that they were definitely sized for children's quite hit your waist.
The sort of capes the sort of 12-year-old girl would fit in, not a chunky adult male. But it's very funny. And I'd just like to say on that one, we used, because they're all 3 games were on Into the Dark, and we used your asymmetric Galadark maps, which I'm really grateful for, because I didn't think anyone there had used them before, so they were brand new maps to everyone. And the fact that they were asymmetric meant that the which side do you pick actually meant something for a change. So I just want to say big thanks for that. Really, really grateful.
Yeah, map designing is very difficult, especially with 3 objectives. They made it a lot harder this time around, and in fact, they made it so difficult that me and Giacomo have been working quite a lot on MDF Into the Dark that we've been running at events and stuff. Just because we can kind of make whatever layout we want with wherever the doors are and all that kind of stuff, just because the Games Workshop stuff is so, I mean, I could talk, like I've done this before.
It's limited in its options.
Exactly. You have a set amount of pieces and they're always the same pieces.
And then with 3 objectives in order to make it at least balanced, because even as narrative players, we don't want one side just to win all the time. We still want things to be semi-balanced, right? And then there's like just certain objective placements that is just poor or too strong for one side. So, it's kind of going back and forth. I appreciate your guys' kind words on that. We definitely put quite a lot of effort into it, and we're trying to update them a little bit for LVO, right? So again, extra, especially considering like we don't know what the next season's going to bring, and LVO changed this year to October, and typically the other season would come out like mid-September. So it could come out 2 weeks beforehand. And if it's another Into the Dark, let's just say if it is, right? Like they could have brand new stuff, they could have brand new pieces. But if it's like Jungle, which I bet you it's going to be Jungle.
Something like that. Oh man, that's old.
There's too many rumors back in the day about
Get
Jungle.
over it, man.
That's like a year and a half ago.
And then Jungle's just going to be like, you can't shoot somebody unless if they're within 6 inches of you because it's jungle.
Right. Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Absolutely.
Which would be great for narrative.
House of
I don't
Flying
know about-
Daggers style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's awesome. I want to move on to the Boys Bash and some of our new layouts. I want to catch your guys' reaction on some of these. 'Cause I know you've seen some pictures. Giacomo, did you post all? I don't know. Where have you seen these pictures? That's the question.
I have a few I posted.
You
on
have a few that you
Instagram.
posted? Okay.
They,
A few.
Did Alex come to the Boys Bash?
He did not. Alex posted some from his event, I believe. A couple
Did
months
he have
before.
a similar layout? Because I saw some wreckers in his photos that were eerily similar to mine, and I was like, I was not at that event.
It very well could have been. Let me see if I can pull these up without... All right. I think this should work. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go here. So this is one of our maps. What we've been doing with our maps is these little spots you could climb up here onto these vantages, but you can't see over into the dark walls. I know it's not the best picture. I apologize. These are also our brand new Into the Dark mats, which are cool. You know,
very cool.
I got like 100 of them. I made them myself.
Yep.
And then have them shipped here. Our next map, these little orange doors right here, for our podcast listeners, we have giant orange, not green, I'm colorblind.
It's okay.
Orange doors that, Giacomo, why don't you tell us the rules for these orange doors?
So they work like this. They are giant orange doors about the size of 2 of the squares of Into the Dark. So it's a very, very large hatchway per se. Works as barred, so if you're within an inch, you could shoot through it and get shot back. You can move through it, and it costs 1 inch to move through, so it has the accessible rule. And that's about it for the most part. Yeah.
These giant windows that are made of clear acrylic, these also have the barred keyword. So sometimes you might think you're safe, but if somebody gets within an inch of this, they have then visibility on engage and can shoot somebody, which is pretty exciting. Different kind of things at play, right? Here's another one. You can kind of see the orange doors a little bit better. And then we have some crazy maps come up. This is Pariah Nexus. Pariah Nexus is a ton of fun because we made it so that you could jump over these green pits, which are just a fog, and I added the beta decimal rule, but changed it to 2 inches. So if there's a model within 2 inches of the mist, you can shoot it. But otherwise, you can jump across, and you have a 4-inch jump and all that good stuff. Quite a fun map, I would say. We brought in the Star Striders map. Are you guys familiar with this one? This one's a 2018 or 2020?
I think so. I was unfamiliar with it when it dropped.
I recognize it because I learned Kill Team 18 on Roll20 online.
Okay.
All right.
So we played top-down Kill Team. So I
Amazing.
think we ripped a PNG off this board and literally blocked out all the walls and everything, and it was great fun.
Yeah. What we added out on this one was we added something called Deep Strike, which is an old Kill Team rule, which I'll show you guys. It's one of our Mezosaic cards. And then we had this one, which was just a giant open Into the Dark map with a bunch of heavy broken walls that you could climb over, and then a bunch of vantages made out of barrels that you could get on top of and shoot people. It was a pretty fun map. This one is our very first Beta Decima Into the Dark. And it's a 2-story Into the Dark. But the black is obvious. You can jump over the black, but you can't,
Land on it.
You can't land on it because then you'd be in space. In this one, we had a low gravity rule. So you could jump out 6 inches instead of 4 inches.
Nice.
And all climbing would cost 2. So we gave everyone Void Dancer flip belts. So that was fun and exciting. This one is crazy. I took a couple pictures of this one.
Yeah, this one has a lot.
This one I call Luke Skywalker Bridges. It is a 3-story Into the Dark map. And unfortunately, no one at the event yelled out, "Luke, you are my father."
No.
It was very unfortunate. It was very
Plot
very
spoiler
unfortunate
for the kids.
Yeah. So this is the first floor and second floor. This was also called the squatting board because people had to keep going up and down. That was unintentional, but squad gains makes you work for your heart.
It's nice to get the reps in however you can.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to mention these little holes that you're pointing at right now.
These accessible holes.
Yes.
They went viral on our Instagram because when I first showed off my accessible holes, people they had a lot of comment about accessible holes on Into the Dark.
There's a content warning on that.
Is this available on the Squad Games OF site?
Hopefully, actually, we're working on making some of these STL files, so
people can make them.
We'll be able to say like, hey, if you want to do some of these maps, you can 3D print some stuff and kind of go from there. So that's the hope and dream.
That's the future.
That's the hope and dream. Then we have a couple snow maps. These were available at LVO for 2 years in a row. They won't be there this year because it'll all be space themed. Fun stuff on here. We have a UPS truck. Everyone always asks if you can get into the UPS truck, which is just a die-cast car that I put a bunch of stuff on. UPS is a delivery service in the United States. I don't know if they shipped anything into the UK.
No, I think that's DHL.
We've got
have it
UPS here.
Okay.
Oh wow! I actually didn't know that.
So typically I tell people if they're within an inch of the driver's side door, they can get in, and for 1 AP, they can back up an inch or forward an inch and deal D3 damage to an enemy operative. I have no idea if anyone's ever done it, but I made
Aggressive
it kind of
scrambled terrain. I love it.
Aggressive scramble terrain.
I like that. And then we have another snow map, which we have a bunch of like work equipment and barrels and all that shindig. And then finally, we have something called, there's another.
It's another one from the angle. Yeah.
Another Beta Decima.
I like to think they remind me of Quake Arena maps.
Yes.
When I think of them.
Quake Arena maps and Halo.
On the money with that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the theme I was going for, Here's our Into the Volcus. So this was a Volcus building, and then we have another Volcus building right here. But you're playing Volcus on a different sized board, right? Because it's Into the Dark sized maps, not 30 by 22. These are 24 by 28. Yep. So pretty fun, different. This one is called, we did Power Surge on this map.
Yeah, this one was interesting. This one's like a giant room.
Yeah, this one's crazy.
Do we have a top? There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
So deployments were in this square, and models could go through this door underneath, and then there was 2 doors on this side, or you could get up on the second floor. It's kind of like an asymmetrical fight vantage. This is by far the most amount of terrain that we had to put on a table.
Yeah.
It takes like 36 just normal walls.
Yeah, I can tell.
Not including doors. It has 12 doors, plus the 2 energy walls, plus the giant window segments. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But
you know how we were
it was
talking
cool.
earlier about bringing the magic back into Kill Team? In the nicest way possible, these boards are bordering on Necromunda boards.
You are correct.
Yeah, I could see that, because Necromunda does like to have a lot of this stuff.
That is the #1 comment that I get with it.
But,
Which isn't a bad thing, right?
No. So Necromunda is the other love of my life.
Okay.
And I think the perfect game exists in between the competitive Kill Team and narrative Necromunda, which is kind of where we're straddling the two.
Yeah.
But these boards look so much fun.
Thank you. I'm going to show you guys a video, and then I'll explain how these boards came to be. Okay. So we have, this is another angle that you can see, and I think there's one more. Yeah, it's the same one before. Okay, there's a top-down one, right?
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah. So this was a ton of fun, right? We had a blast running it, and then I told everyone. So I cosplayed as an orc. I asked every single person to come as an orc. No one did.
Nope.
No.
Just me.
Oh.
Just me. Just me. But next year, I have faith that people will come dressed as an orc because there's one day a year, just like Santa Claus, Dakotah comes out. That was my orc's name. And this was Giacomo. The reason why they named him Giacomo is because he whacked a guy named Mo, right? Also, Glass Half Dead mispronounced his name as Giacomo, and
many
it's
years ago,
stuck.
yes.
So,
And I enjoyed it. It was funny.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So, I'm going to show everyone a quick video real quick for our podcast listeners. Giacomo, are you going to include the audio into it? It's just a bunch of people like murmuring and talking for about a minute and then
I'll probably cut to the relevant part.
relevant part.
Yeah, I'll get to the relevant part.
He's going to cut to the relevant part. So we're going to go through it for our podcast listeners and our YouTube viewers real quick. So...
I'll just tell you what it is. I like to use the different ones so I can keep them separated.
All right, Melty, here's what we're cooking with. We got the other rocket guy here, the normal rocket. I have started my
Burner Boy, an extra APL responsibility.
They all move 7, so they can create
Hell yeah! There we go.
There we go.
Unfortunately, you guys couldn't hear that, right? Neither can me and Giacomo, so we just sat in a minute of silence. It was a little awkward, but hey, it wasn't for the YouTube viewers, right? It was great. It was a fun event. Giacomo, it was kind of like bordering on narrative, right? It was kind of like, I think a lot of our competitive, in Southern California, we have tons and tons and tons of competitive kill team players and not as many narrative, but all of the narrative players are also competitive players.
Yeah,
There's a couple that don't overlap, but it's not a ton, right? Do you guys find the same in the UK?
Yeah, I mean we don't see these things as mutually exclusive at all. I don't know if you met him at Worlds last year, but friend of our show, Tom Catasides, who played Blood Angel Phobos, amazingly painted Blood Angel Phobos.
I saw that
remember seeing
team.
them,
I
yeah.
never met him, and if I did, I didn't get his name, so I wouldn't put the two together.
He's called Tom, friendliest guy alive. He's been running in London. He's a pretty good player. He's a pretty excellent player. He beat some pretty big names in that tournament with Phobos, who were not the top meta. But he's really into narrative, and over the last 12 weeks, he's been running a campaign in London called Vorland's Hollow. It's a team game again where we have there's like 32 players, so 16 on each side. And I was captain of the Imperium side. I was the rogue trader, the Baron von Bratznickel the 12th, trying to recover my fortunes I was pulling in favours with my warrant of trade, and on the other team was led by a Farstalker Kimband, mercenary and chaos group trying to stop them. Yeah, he's done loads of organisation, brilliant campaign. I think a lot of people in London had a lot of fun getting involved.
He nearly single-handedly wrangled
Yeah,
matchup for all the 32 players and everything, and made sure people hit their games, chased them if they hadn't said anything for a couple of weeks and everything.
we
I take that as literal as possible, and it makes it even better.
Yeah. Down the street.
but he's a great example of super competitive game, very good at kill team, but loves narrative and really supportive of it in London. And we also had back a while back, we had Can You Roll a Crit on the podcast after he'd been to a Games Workshop narrative event at Warhammer World, and he loved it. And it's kind of a shame for us that he's so good at the game that he doesn't get a chance to play.
It was actually
narrative
really,
often.
really lovely to hear him just like pour out his love for Eldari in general. And I was like, you are such a super fan who just happens to be really, really good at the game you enjoy.
Yeah, John is an amazing person. Quite good friends of the channel over here as well.
Yeah, he's
And
lovely.
he had an amazing Necron Gellerpox team that he brought to Nova last year. Absolutely wonderful. And at LVO, he brought an amazingly painted Legionary team. But, you know, I don't know if I could ever convince him to come over to LVO and play in our narrative. You know, like he's flying across the world. He's going to do what
He's going to go for the big one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Were there rumours that he
Well,
was going to retire from
He's
competitive
chasing
play?
it less.
Is he? Is he?
Yeah. He said it on his Spotify podcast, the Can You Roll a Crit podcast. He was talking to someone, and he's just like, I've chased all the fake internet points and everything, and now I'm just going to do the stuff that I enjoy.
There you go.
When you reach the end of the world and you weep, for there are no more worlds to conquer.
It's interesting. So Adrian Bonavento won the year before last, and then Jimmy Kelly won this year, and he's also a good friend of mine. Both are. But, you know, I see him all the time at LVO, right? So, like, I just naturally build, you know, friendships with these people. But, yeah, I mean, even Jimmy Kelly was like, I did it last year. He's still competitive. He still wants to win, right? But he's, like, bringing, like, Farstalker Kinband. He's bringing, like, other crazy stuff. And he's, like, not winning events, still doing really well. But it is interesting to see almost everyone except for the Spanish. The Spanish, I think Ace won 2 years in a row.
They're going to keep doing it.
And Spain's a different beast. You know?
That's what they like. And that's cool.
Yeah, we'll get Spain on here one of these days so they can explain themselves. Why are they so sweaty? No, I love Spain. Some of the best people that I met at Worlds, outside of my fellow Americans and Australians, right? Australians just do everything Americans do, but they're upside down. I don't know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you know. And they have big spiders, which is weird.
I'm for it. I love spiders.
Yeah. So like I got to meet Dan and a bunch of his players on his team, the old ones,
The
old ones,
yeah.
the old ones. I got to play against a bunch of them, right? One of which passed away, you know, rest in peace. And then, gosh, who else did we? Oh, the Spanish. The Spanish, I played one Spaniard, and I just loved the way Spain communicates in game, right? Because you play a lot of competitive players, and I felt way more relaxed. It's like, hey, we're both good at the game. Let's both voice our intention as we move them. And if you disagree, okay, let's make it work, right? But there's like too many times in like, when somebody's like really sweaty, they'll just like not say anything and then be like, oh, I can actually get you here. You know, and it's like, hey, come on, dude. You know, we don't got to play like that.
I'm such a huge fan of playing with intent. And also, I like reminding your opponent that they can do something. Like, I want us to both have the best game that we can with the tools at our disposal. I don't want to win because you forgot something.
Agreed. There's like one thing that I would say that I witness as a TO amongst competitive is there's another intent thing called intent to win, right? And if your intent is just to win, so anything you do is like, oh, I didn't mean for this guy to get shot. It just keeps happening. Or, oh, this, or, oh, that, or, oh, this. And it happens like repetitively. A lot of times we call that intent to win rather than like, oh, yeah, like I didn't know that you could get the shot. Go ahead and take the shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think there's a fine line, but I do agree that it's way better to voice what your intention is with the game. Because, for instance, like sometimes just like, hey, my intent is to not have these guys within 2 inches of each other for a blast. Okay, I'm going to put them here. Okay, later down the line, something happens. A model got knocked.
Stuff
it's like,
gets
oh,
knocked.
Yep,
yeah,
it's gonna happen.
It's like I'm going to blast this guy. Oh, this guy's within 2. It's like, oh, remember I said that my intent wasn't within 2. We measured to make sure before. Now he's kind of within. It's like, oh yeah, dude, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Roll the dice. You know what I mean?
I think your intent to win can't come up if you're playing with intent in the first place. Because if you voiced everything beforehand,
Yeah.
if you go, I'm moving him there with the intention that he can't get shot by this operative,
There you go.
then you've already covered yourself.
Yep.
Whereas if you withhold that information or just don't share that information, then, it's like chess. You've taken your finger off the piece.
It's over now.
Yeah.
And Games Workshop, outside of Sanctifiers, has done a really, really good job at removing a lot of the cheese, a lot of the alpha strikes, right? I think they removed the alpha strike from Sanctifiers now.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, but, they've done a really good job at removing a lot of cheese in the game, so it's a lot easier to kind of, play the game without having to worry about losing turning point 1,
worst
whether
feeling.
you're playing narrative or competitively. But moving away from that real quick, what are your guys' favorite teams or favorite factions? Like lore-wise or whatever,
Go on, Jason.
I wanna ruin your planet by with my Gene Stealer cult. That's what I
Oh,
want to do.
Okay.
This
okay.
guy.
Tree. Your planet's mine, but from within.
I suddenly fucking hate this
That's
man.
a relatively. Yeah, there you go.
This fucking guy. All right. Fair. Gene Stiller cult. That's fair.
Someone has to play him.
Somebody has
right?
to. They made him for somebody.
Someone
right?
has to be the heel.
All right.
All
right. Okay, that's fair.
And this is where Jason and I bonded, because I'm the shield that slays, the protector of humanity's last line against the galaxy, the Death Watch. Purge the Xenos.
Yes.
And that's I met Adrian B in the Death Watch Discord, and we bonded over I have far too many Death Watch proxy kill teams. I think I have all of Compendium as Death Watch.
Wow.
Nice. I love it.
I think so.
And Adrian has some beautiful models.
Absolutely.
They're stunning.
Yeah, absolutely glorious. Giacomo, why don't you share yours?
I'm usually a true and blue. I will die for the Emperor. I'm playing Marines all the time. When I did play 2018, I did play Deathwatch. That's what I really wanted. That's what I still want today. It's not going to probably happen anytime soon. And I'll hold on to that dream forever.
List?
Yeah,
Yeah. For me, it's always been Eldar, Craft World Eldar. I have like 14,000 points of them. But unfortunately, I don't really vibe with any of the rules in Kill Team currently with any kind of Eldar faction. I think they're either too big brained for my tiny brain, right? Or, they're a little bit harder. So I kind of gravitate towards Space Marines and the Imperium. Ever since I learned about Primarchs, in like 2018, I've definitely been I've been turning into an Imperium man. So, Xenos filth, I love to burn with flamers, and fight with hand axes from my guardsmen or chain swords and, just go full Black Templar,
Okay.
Those are my main factions.
My latest hot fling is the World Eaters.
Okay, yeah.
I
Beautiful.
I binge listened to any audiobook I could find on Audible. And I was just like, this Angron guy and Khan are so sick. I need to do something with it. So I think I've got maybe 4 or 5 different Khorne World Eater based kill teams at the moment.
Hell yeah. Are they red and gold or are they white and blue?
They are white and blue transitioning to red.
Okay.
Ooh,
So
that's
they're
exciting.
post heresy.
Right.
I love it.
So did you jump on Goremongers as soon as they were announced?
I was excited for Goremongers because my Felgor Ravagers are the Jackals models.
Okay.
And they're also my Corpse Grinder cults for Necromunda. So I'd like to multi-purpose all my models. I've got them actually here. This is my Goremonger leader.
Ooh. Okay.
Oh, where's the camera?
Yep,
It's
there it
a
is.
Necromunda model, but I've cut off her legs and given her some of the legs from the
That's an
Unnamed
Escher
from
game,
Warcry.
right?
Yeah. Oh, we're backwards.
Beautiful.
That's why I'm struggling. But then something Jason and I talked about on the podcast that came out yesterday, war goals. Should my leader kill enough people, she's going to achieve apotheosis.
Oh, yeah.
turn
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got excited about the Goremongers. I think that's a fair shout.
I love it. So do you try to give all of your guys as ugly heads as possible, or do you try to make them look kind of human because they're trying like as a Gene Stilt Colt, kind of guy, I got to know a little bit, I got to know what I'm looking for when I'm trying to kill your homies.
We used to do fake adverts on the podcast, and one of my favorites, and this is one of yours, Sean, was you got a what is it face.
Oh, it was just after COVID, wasn't it? It was hands, face, space.
Hands, face, space. So look for the claws, look for the brow,
Check
the
for
brow,
lumps.
and then look to see if a Tyranid swarm was about to come down. So remember, kids, hands, face, space. That's yeah. No, yeah. Don't forget to the genes to the Gene Stealer cult. They're all beautiful. These are, the patriarch is the most beautiful thing we've all seen. So it's all good, baby.
All right, I'm going to show you my display board, okay? And I'm going to show you how much we are enemies, okay? I'm going to show it to you. So when I went to Salt Lake City Open, this is not a current picture of my display board. I added some stuff and I changed the leader because I brought this team to Worlds and I got best display at Worlds, which was exciting. I was worried that your boy, the Blood Angel guy, was going to take it from me because his stuff was fucking immaculate.
Yeah, his jungle basing was stunning.
Yeah, but
about 7 weeks on each model or something.
That sounds right.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. So on this one, you'll see my leader is Master Chief, right? But I had to change it to a GW model for the event, right? So I changed it to Severina Rain, which is my favorite female model that Games Workshop currently produces outside of maybe of Rain.
Cool. Are these your action figures?
These ones are not the action figures, actually. The action figures are just not allowed at Games Workshop events because they're all from...
is it RTW or is it hardcore?
Hardcore miniatures. So that he used to produce a line that were called the Jungle Fighters, and they were all like Catachan looking dudes. So these are all the Cadian guys, and I'll show it to you guys real quick. So let's see if I can move this just a tad.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
So this was a really fun conversion and stuff like that. But there's a danger lurking beneath that you guys are just about to see, right? So my guys, we're killing a bunch of Gene Stealers, okay, because they're invading the streets of my New York. There's a guy up here.
That's fantastic.
Let's see, do we have any more? There's a Gene Stealer in the window. And then I believe that's it. And then I got a couple homies, up on the roofs. This guy lost his hand, which was very upsetting. I called Giacomo.
That's why he's looking at it.
He was looking like, what happened? Oh no, very upset.
Well, like
that's
lightning.
Not that one. Sorry. So, that's
a stunning board.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. I think it's like 23 inches tall, and it has smoke that comes out the base. It's quite fun. But that's how much me and you, not you, Giacomo, but that guy right there, I love it. I love all. I also love to make fun of the Tau, and people in our YouTube comments will come up and be like, "Oh, I can't believe you're," and it's like, guys,
I haven't been in the game long enough. That's why. They're brand.
It's part of the joke.
Yeah, it's part of the joke. And if you weren't around since the year 2000 and you didn't play against OG Pathfinders, you don't know how much pain and suffering the Warhammer community went through. But I love them. I do love them. I will say, they're quite.
Yeah, Pathfinders are pretty cool.
Old scars are the deepest. That's the that's the sting.
The comeback to all Tau is, I've got dreadnoughts older than your civilization.
You're not wrong.
That's in a story, wasn't it?
I know, yeah. It's they had a battle with some Space Marines, prized open one of the dreadnoughts, and discovered it was 6,000 years old.
Yeah, and they're like, "Wait, what?" Yeah, it was. They're like, "Well, we were around 5,000 years ago. Oh, that's crazy." So, going back to narrative, we like to deviate here at Squad Games. What do you guys think really pushes a good narrative for events? I know that you discussed your 3-game process at an event, right? But let's say you guys were going to be running the Las Vegas Open. I would love to get your thoughts and stuff before we dive into what we think, because I think that it's really, I can learn from you, and you guys could possibly learn from us. I mean, you've been doing this for way longer than we have, right? But I would love to know, it's going to be, for us, it's an 8-round event, right? With 36 players. So sometimes if you like, it's impossible to like plan out like a win path scenario for every single player and have a DM be able to tell everyone everything, you know? I'll tell you a couple core details so that you could just think about it real quick. We have 4 teams because team events are way better, right? So if you're going to the event, you're going to be on one of 4 teams. So you know anyone on your team you're not going to play against, maybe. We'll go into that in a second.
40K, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But, you know, so that's kind of like the main derivative, right? Is that there's going to be 4 teams, you're in a spaceship, and there's Tyranids, right? If you guys had to do a small, I'm putting you on the spot because I'm an asshole like that. If you guys had to come up with something just for 8 games, what do you think you would kind of do? Off the cuff.
Do you have access to screens and the sound system?
I can. It's like 5 months away.
So like D&D, you know how a good DM plans for what may happen?
Mm-hmm.
Pre-record some video, and you could have your, you know, Inquisitor Cryptman or whatever against the Tyranid invasion. And depending on which team, like after 1 round or 2 rounds, he can just announce like which team's in the lead, or you know, the Imperium's never going to come back from these losses that we're taking, you know, and you can just record some like little 20-second, 30-second snippets, and have them preloaded, and then choose which one to play, like ready to go, queue it up. That's Jason. We're in for a real treat if we ever get any funding behind us.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
The thing that I'm increasingly learning for myself. So this is something I'm coming more to realize, which is a lot of the fun is the pre-event investment. So if you've got a Discord or a WhatsApp or something, I mean, I'd really encourage people to say, what's your team called? What's your leader called at least? Is there a background? If they're in teams, create like a channel for each team, and they can bond and strategize and badmouth the other team.
Love
it. And the more of that can go on, even before you get to the event, you arrive already like, I've bonded with this group of people who are my team, and I, you know, playfully hate the other team, you know, in a hopefully, you know, lovely way. In the same way that you hated me and my G-Stealer goal.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
hey, at least you don't play Tau, right?
Exactly.
Wow,
exactly.
there we go.
although you should see my best bits.
Okay, all right, fair.
But the more interaction, even before you get there, and you just feel totally invested, and then what it already sounds like. I mean, what you guys I think are great at with these things is you have the feeling of high stakes. We did a survey a couple of years ago of our listeners on what they wanted out of narrative, and it was that, you know, what happens in a game should matter. Which was not really the case with Spec Ops so much. You could lose all of your games and complete your Spec Ops, for instance. So if you're in the event, so make it really eventful whether they win or lose, especially at the end. You know, like it should be quite a momentous, you know, galaxy impacting. Maybe not galaxy impacting, but certainly a world should be at stake.
That's fair.
I think immersion is what we're going for.
Yeah, I think you guys would do that anyway. But
and making people care.
Yeah, caring. That's the thing. Caring for your team.
That's fair.
Sacrificing
on our
team.
Discord, we had some people chatting about what they missed about Spec Ops, and someone very succinctly put it was all the in-between game stuff that they looked forward to the most, of like carrying stuff over. So I think if you can interact or engage the players in between each round, it'll like keep them involved and and make them care.
Okay. I'm going to tell you guys some stuff, and obviously the listeners as well, what they have to look forward to. I'm not going to ruin any story elements, right?
Yeah.
That's all still being worked on, but we have some of the mechanics down and stuff. Firstly, Saya is going to be dressing up as a rogue trader, and she's going to be like the main DM for it, kind of taking everyone going through it. We should 100% do a video going into it and coming out of it and a couple different things like that. That's a great suggestion because we will have a screen. But we're also going to have a home base for each team.
Nice.
So for, it's going to be like a little like section, and it'll have equipment cards, battle honor cards that you can purchase with, when you play a game, you can purchase, you can win something that we are calling narrative directives, which is you're playing a crit ops, right? But there's going to be an additional objective that you can do, right? Which will be like, so we have, I think it's Sentinels, Marauders, Harvesters, and then we're adding something called the Hive Mind in case we get any of the Wormblade, Brood Brothers, Tyrannid teams. They can't be on any team except for the Hive Mind, right? Yeah. So each team has a special secondary that doesn't change from game to game, and they're difficult. But depending on how many of those you complete out of 6, you can get that many points, and then you go to Saya in between games, and she will give you actual acrylic tokens that I will make, so that you can have this little like gold stockpile. You can either keep them or you can put them in your team's bank, which will, if your team unlocks specific abilities, you get better against the Tyrannid threat. Or you can use them selfishly and buy more equipment, or you can buy more battle honors for your team. So you can draw from this deck of cards that we're making.
I love this so much.
You like it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Good.
But now here's the thing. The hive mind people are trying to infect people, and the more infected models that you get, the more likely you are to switch to the hive mind itself. So you might have your best friend who keeps losing games and dying to these Tyrannids, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yo, hey, I'm a genius." Sorry.
Hands, face.
Yeah. But if that happens, then you get to trade in your cards for hive mind cards and all this other kind of stuff. But on top of that, we're going to have 9 missions that we will publish so that people can go home and play through our 9 mission narrative at home if they want, right? With their friends. So you can go through, I think it's probably going to be more along the lines of like, you should play it in order, but at an event that's impossible, right?
Yeah.
So people will just never play on the same map twice at our event. We'll still figure out the mechanics of that later. But there should be, so we have to basically make 9 maps. We have to make each map twice, and then we have to make all of the Tyranids. And now I believe I think one of the reasons why you guys reached out was because you listened to our podcast about the Starscreamer. And
yes,
we have changed the Starscreamer a tad, and I want to reiterate what it is now going to do. Giacomo, how many wounds do you think a Starscreamer should... In fact, okay, hold on. Let me just... Okay, let me get a Space Marine here. All right. Giacomo, how many wounds do you think a Space Marine, you know how many wounds a Space Marine has, right?
Yeah.
Which is?
14.
14. In Warhammer 40K, they have
2
wounds, right? A Starscreamer has 10 wounds in Warhammer 40K, okay? And they're this big, right? And you can see right? He is an absolute
Absolute unit right there.
Yeah, let's try to.
Yeah, we are no strangers to good old
Yeah.
boss monsters.
Yeah. So how many wounds do you think this guy should have?
Let's see. So you probably want to do not quite 5 times as much, but maybe at least 3 times. So you're probably in the realm of like 48, somewhere there. Maybe you just round it to 50. Let's make it clean.
Okay, I'm going to make it 80. And let me tell you why. He's going to be the only bad guy on the map. And with that many wounds, and I'm going to have him heal and stuff like that, right? I changed the mechanic. I was speaking to a guy, Rob, the Hobby Highlander. He helped us with our very first LVO narrative. And on one particular map, he's going to be kind of in this big open room where all the objectives are in. And essentially, if your model moves on conceal, he doesn't see you. He's like a T-Rex, right? But every model that moves on conceal, he has a chance to activate, right? And once he activates, the cooldown timer goes backwards, and you have to keep rolling a dice every time an activated model. Or if you attack him, the activated timer goes down, so he could start activating more. Or if you throw a smoke grenade or a stun grenade at him, his timer goes back up, right? So it's like if you want to fight in this room to get these points and stuff, it's a lot more difficult because this guy can still destroy into the dark walls. He has 80 wounds, which you can't nuke him in two activations anymore, right?
Yep.
What do you guys think about that kind of a boss monster mechanic where there's a continual roll down? You know, it's like, oh, okay, on a 7-up he's going to activate, on a 6-up, on a 5-up, on a 4-up, on a 3-up, on a 2-up. Oh, he's going. He's killing somebody. What do you guys think?
We've had a go at similar things. The friend of the show, James, friend of our show, James, did some rules for an amble a while ago. Had a similar kind of thing. He had quite a lot of wounds. Was really scary, but even when you got him down to 0 wounds, it just meant he went underground and burrowed for a bit and came up and was continuing to be scary. And this is whilst 2 teams were trying to, fight each other and do some objectives. Yeah, we love a boss battle. We've got several. I've got one with a sentinel. I've got a mission with a patriarch. Yeah, we love them. A patriarch before rules came out for patriarch.
Fair. That's fair.
The best boss battles have mechanics aside from kill the boss. So if you're trying to accomplish something whilst this thing is threatening you, that's what you'll remember. And the way you were describing it really reminded me of, I'm going to bring it back to D&D, lair actions of legendary monsters. Of
Very
after
similar.
you've done something, I've got the option to do something. And especially if you think of like the Patriarch with its new rules, it can activate twice, And if it's the only thing on the table, you could activate once, activate twice, counteract, and then if you scale that up, that just keeps going. So if you could activate maybe 4 or 5 times a turn with this behemoth, then I think people will be starting to go, maybe I shouldn't be going so loud, and start sneaking around and trying to do stuff.
And the other thing that comes to mind with this is, especially if you've got a really mega super boss like this one, is have items that the players items available on the board somewhere in the kill zone somewhere that will help them either kill it or stun it or capture it or something.
So what you're saying is add a Ripley mech that somebody can get into and add like 10 wounds to them and be like, oh, I'm going to fight you. Okay, I like it. I could do
Bring
it.
in one of those Repentia machines that they can climb into the front of.
I love that. That's a great idea.
But we love boss battles. This sounds brilliant. But
Okay,
that
good.
model in particular is just one of my favourite models of all time. So
Same.
thumbs up.
So I want to talk to you guys. I'm telling you guys each of our maps, right? So our first map is going to be a lab style map where you have to kill a bunch of egg sacs, but there's going to be some Tyranids inside, right? And every time you kill an egg sac, it hurts you. But it's basically loot. So every single egg sac that you kill, it functions like loot. You can you can score 2 per turn, but you can't actually score more. So you could run to your opponent's side and start popping all their eggs, right? Being, because you kill the Xenos threat, right? Our second one I wrote is Beta Into the Dark Spaceship in the middle of the map, which you guys saw. I just didn't add the spaceship. In fact, Giacomo, entertain them for a second. I'm going to go get the SS Saya. Hold on. 1 second.
It's a fun little ship.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's a fun little ship. You'll get to see it. It's been 3D printed and put together.
I'll tell you what,
we still do some paint job.
I can't wait for you to send us some, airplane tickets so we can come to this event.
That'll be the dream at some point,
You see how prepared we are.
I'd like to
here
get
at
more
Small
people
Games.
from other places.
Yeah, this looks fantastic.
So this is going to be the SS Saya.
yeah.
It's just orange now. But it will go in the middle of one of the maps that we showed off earlier in the episode.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, this is what my wife's Rogue Trader, flew in on. So
Jason, we can do the same with my Corvus Blackstar. I mean, you've got
There you
ships
go.
of your own, Jason.
I painted up a Thunderbolt fighter to put on the Mosaik landing pad.
Hell yeah.
I play with that sometimes. Yeah, it's
We
great.
we got in a role of making vehicles for our kill teams.
Oh, that's fun.
Back in Spec Ops, when you had your base for upgrades, we were like, well, what are
That's
the upgrades
cool.
going on?
That's amazing.
So you've got a Taurox for your Scions as well, haven't you?
I do. I love a vehicle. I play a game that doesn't include vehicles, but I love making a vehicle or a plane.
The next one we have is an Into the Volcus map, right, which is killing more egg sacs. And then we have Luke Skywalker bridges, and on that one we're going to have another destroying egg sacs. If you can tell, there's a similar theme for a lot of the maps, right? You're trying to kill the Tyranid infestation, and if you're not, you're trying to protect them, right? Because how the hive mind will score points on that one is they will score a point for every egg sac that's not popped. Exciting.
That is a true narrative mission where
Thank you.
attackers get something every turn, defenders get something at the end of the game.
I'm slightly worried though, because with the price of eggs being what it is in America at the moment, getting people to pop eggs, is this just gonna?
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. This is a loss leader.
I apologize.
The
I
winner
knocked our
gets a
earbuds
dozen
out.
eggs.
How many
is the
how many
prize.
objectives are you running on these maps? Are you still
So,
sticking with 3, or are you
no.
mixing it up?
So when we have an egg map, we're going to do 12 eggs, and they'll be spread throughout the thing, and then the maps will also show them where they're supposed to be. So we'll have like an entire page, dedicated to placement of stuff and walls and all that good stuff too. But 12 makes sense, and also on a 3-story Into the Dark map, if you just have 3 objectives, you're going to be like fighting on 3rd story over here, middle of the map, 2nd story over here, and bottom floor over here, and everyone's going to ignore everything else, right?
You're playing 3 different games.
Exactly. Then we have engine rooms where we're going to have a neuro tyrant and a bunch of its like creatures inside as well.
Yeah.
And that is the one that you made the comment of like, oh, this is bordering on the line of Necromunda. That is the engine room. We're going to have a bunch of like pipes and stuff like that in the middle of the map.
Sweet.
On the 2 outer parts, we're going to have a neuro tyrant and all the little creatures. That one is going to be exceedingly difficult. That one's going to be a power surge mission because you're in there. But we have something else exciting. We're going to have exploding barrels in there. So you can go in there and shoot the exploding barrel, but there's a cost, right? If you blow up an exploding barrel, the Luke Skywalker bridges, and which will be your map on your left, and the map on your right, which we call vents, which is just Mario World, which I'll get in a second. Those 2 maps will gain an environmental effect. So whenever you blow up a barrel, you can be like, okay, now our room has, what is it called? Thin atmosphere, right? And so do your guys' table. Sorry, we blew up another one. Okay, now there's no gravity. Here you guys go, and can it affect other players' maps? When we played last year, that was the thing that everyone liked the most. Our very final game, if you didn't kill the final boss in 45 minutes, he shut off the night. He's like a Nightbringer. He would shut off everything, all the lights and stuff, and people could only shoot the Necrons within 6 inches of each other. So their goal was to kill this dude in 45 minutes, And that's the thing that everyone was like, did you kill him? What's going on? Like people were in different turning points. It was pretty exciting. So we kind of definitely kept that. And then we have another one called Vents. And in the Vents one, you can go into a vent, and then the next turning point, you can come out any of the vents in the map, right? Which is exciting, which is cool. And that one we're going to have the Psychophage, which is like another 80 wound creature that eats people. It's another giant
That's the
Tyranid.
big psychic chimney one,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yep, which is a very interesting model to say the least.
This guy.
Yeah.
Quite a large guy as well, you know? And then our final 3 maps are going to be Beta Decima into space. We're going to have not this one, but 2 spaceships up on top of platforms that it's going to be sabotage. So you have to go to your opponent's spaceship and blow it up, and they have to blow up yours. And then we have a storage bay, which is going to be a Turvagon in that one. And every round, it keeps spurring out more Gaunts. And there's already a bunch of Gaunts and Hormagaunts on it, so we call it the Mama map. So she's kind of like locked away in this little room, you know, like the queen, you know, making more.
Yeah. I have a suggestion for these big monsters that have mini minions.
Yes.
Give them savior protocols.
Oh,
So
okay.
that the hive mind can toss these tiny little gaunts, or the Neurotyrant's got its little floating jellyfish, doesn't it?
It does.
And they could take the shot.
I like it.
Throws them in front of the way.
I like it a lot. We also are doing something for the NPOs in this, where the NPOs all activate in groups of 4 or groups of 3.
Yep.
We have to find out so like there's only going to be about 4, no more than 4 activations for the NPOs per map. So like 4 will go at a time so it doesn't overload players. At least that's the hope. And then we have Star Screamers is in our last map, and those are our 9 maps. And then we might do something special for the finale, which is going to be exciting. Any of those kind of stick out to you guys? Sound cool, you know?
I'm overwhelmed with brilliantness.
Good.
I want to play all these tomorrow. Let's go.
I love that these tables affect the other tables around them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've just got to like shout it out like, sorry guys, I needed to pop that barrel.
The one that really stands out, because I'm just, you know, envisioning this, if we blatantly stole this idea, was the idea of a real world clock that's something, you know, the 45 minutes or something's going to happen. Because especially when I don't need to tell you guys, when you're doing events, keeping people to time is not an easy thing.
You're not wrong.
And, you know, I'd love some tips from you, perhaps off outside the podcast, because that's something we've struggled with. But giving them something to do, there's a reward. Do something in literally 45 minutes of game time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And the idea that you've got to ask other people how are you getting on, this is affecting all of us, is just fantastic. You know, yeah, that's.
Jason, you've just inspired me. What if, you know, at random points throughout the day, you know, you've got a secret book, and you know, like 10:30 in the morning, this is going to happen. We're going to shout it out, and it's going to happen on every table at the same time.
Amazing.
Did you ever play? What was my favorite Into the Dark map? Did you ever play Subsidence?
I did, yeah.
That was that thematically, the Into the Dark was essentially at 45 degrees, and one team was trying to be at the top and come out and get off the board at the other side. So coming down, if you didn't end your move next to terrain, you could potentially just slide.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Whereas the opposing team had to literally fight uphill to stop them getting past them.
Okay.
And they likewise, there was chances of like falling over. If you hit another operative, there was a chance that both of you went down. That was a really fun mission. Do you remember what pack that was from?
No, it might have been the
It
first
was the
one.
same. It was the same one as Maze Breakout. I think it was Soul Shackle.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. I've got to say, guys, you're running a brilliant event here. We would love to. I'd love to take
Steal
part.
whatever you want. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Of it. Giacomo, do you have a favorite map, or do you have a favorite thing? I think we'll go over the effects and a couple pieces of equipment, just to share off some of the stuff we've been doing.
I like the simplicity of events in how it changes the way you normally play. So it's not quite teleportation, so you sort of know when your opponent is using something, they're about to pop out. But it's the threat of where they could come out is what makes it exciting. Rules like that are always exciting. Like, what was a good example of one? I remember playing this one a friend made, and it was just a bunch of like, this could be the boss, but you don't know yet. And until you get to a certain distance to it, then it's revealed it was nothing. And then it turns out it's over there. Exactly, like blips. And so then it's the fear of what could be, because you still have to play the mission to win, but it could destroy your whole team. So that's a little fun for me. I like things like that where simple rules and it's the threat of what could be. So it adds a bit of fear.
That's really similar to when you use webway gates in Space Hulk way back when. You could enter the gate, but then you'd randomly exit from any of the other gates.
Could lead you to your doom.
I'm gonna make this full screen. I can't see this one.
So these ones we're gonna show off a couple of our cards here. I think they're pretty cool, right? We've definitely done a few things. Some of these will start popping up in our battle reports too, because to be honest, I can only play so much of Volkus or so much of Into the Dark, right? Like Into the Dark to me has become really stale just because 3 objectives.
It does get a little boring.
It's just like we're doing the same thing over and over, you know? And it's like, I think competitive used to be more exciting back in the day because you could kind of do a bunch of different things, you know? But now it's like every map is similar. The game's become really formulaic and it's really lost a lot of rule of cool, right? For me, particularly, at least until we see whatever Games Workshop cooks up next. They've been crushing it with rules lately, so I'm very excited about whatever the next season is, or the next teams, right? But the first thing that we want to reveal is our Deep Strike rule. You can add this to pretty much any game. Alexander Popov, who's shout out to him.
Shout out to him.
We brought this out for Arena. He thinks this is also great for Beta Decima, so we've been playing this on Beta Decima maps, and I think it's a really solid, cool thing, right? We have Deep Strike at the beginning of the game. It's 2 CP, right? If you have less than 10 operatives, or you have 10 operatives or less, you can spend 2 command points, remove 2 models from the game, and then on turning point 2 or turning point 3, those models can come into the game as long as they're wholly outside of 6 inches of your enemies. And if you have over 11 models, then you can remove 3 models from the game. You know, this stops like Void Dancers and Felgor from taking like 3 of their crazed operatives, you know.
Just putting them up in the sky.
Exactly. So, you know, it takes pretty much 7 Moon operatives and allows them to put 3 to the side. It also makes it so meltas are useless when they deep strike in, because it's outside of 3. So this one will be at a couple of tables. That one's a pretty fun one. We have They Are Among Us, right? Which is a fun one. I didn't want to reveal this one, but it's already on screen. So here it is. This is our Mario rule. Essentially, you can jump into an event, on a specific map, right? And then you can exit and you can jump out and fight other people or Tyranids or whatever's on that map, right? That one's a pretty fun one. Let me try to move away so I don't
give away too many.
Give away too many. But we're gonna.
You should encourage players to shout "Wahoo!" as they go down the vents.
That's fair. I like that. And if they don't shout "Wahoo!", then a TO can come over and make them roll all ones.
Yeah.
Another fun thing before we go into a couple more of these mission rules that we've made. Something that Alex did that we're stealing for the Repentant Station is if there is a team that is handily mollywhopping all of the Tyranids, or maybe there's like 2 really skilled opponents at a table and they just nuke all the NPOs, right? Well, we're going to create a couple of extra models. So some Death Leapers, is that what they're called? What is
Von
that?
Ryan ones?
No, not Von Ryan, because we have those.
Oh, the actual Death Leapers, like the big bomb.
Yeah, the big one. Right? We're gonna paint up 2 Death Leapers and we're gonna paint up 2 Patriarch models, or maybe we'll use these old metal Broodlords, like the old ones. You know, we have 2 of those, and have those come out as extremist threats. So we're going to have like minorist threats, moderate threats, and then extremist threats. So if somebody's just like cooking the nids, right? And you're like, all right, this happened to me at when I was playing at Alex's event. We were like just destroying these Velocicarians, these Velociraptors that were killing us. But like we were doing so well that they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna throw another abomination at you guys. And I was like, oh no, I just had a mine. That's all that I did 20 damage to him right when he appeared. So that's besides the point. But perhaps as DMs, as you're watching games, if people are having too easy of a time, maybe think about being able to influence those matches alternatively on a player by player basis rather than just, everyone, there's 4 more Hormagaunts that jumped onto the board. Imagine painting 120 Hormagaunts for that.
I don't think you'd want to.
I wouldn't want to do that.
I love the idea of a TO wandering around with one of these big gribbly monsters and just putting it on the table and putting the MPO card and saying like, it's invisible at the moment. It's going to reveal itself next turning point. Have fun.
I like that. So interesting. That's a really good. I like that. Sai, she told me, she was like, hey, we could do it like this, but I might steal yours or do a mix. Yeah. She was like, oh, if Robert's going to be walking around the tables, because Sai sells a bunch of our stuff because we make a bunch of, accoutrement, kill team accoutrement that we sell at our events. But having Robert be like, hey, you two, go talk to Saya, right? And then they both get up in the middle of their game. They walk over and she's just like, all right, you guys have been hearing screaming in the vents and all this other kind of stuff, an extremist level threat has appeared at your board, and they're like, what do you mean? And then they run back to the table and then Robert's placed, a Death Leaper or something like that at the board. And they're like, oh no, with a new NPO card. And then he's like, oh, have fun, kids. That's what she said. But I like the idea that it's also invisible until the next turn.
Because these Death Leaper, the Death Leapers and the Lictors, like they're stealth's their whole thing. So like, it's fun to go like, he was here the whole time. I don't know what you're about.
I like it.
I do like that one. Yeah. That's a good one.
So next up, we're going to go back to cards real quick. We have a couple more to show off for these. So we have low light. So operatives can, more than 8 inches from an active operative are obscured. So this is specifically because we're doing a lot of Into the Dark. And Into the Dark, typically the rooms are 8 by 8. So if they're outside of a room, they're obscured. Cool beans, right? Maybe there's a way on some maps to turn on the light or turn off the light. Who knows? We'll have to, when we design these a little bit more, we'll kind of figure it out. We have mag-locked hatchways. So this is every time you try to open a hatchway. On a 1 through 3, the hatchway doesn't open, and you have to spend an extra APL to open it. On a 4-up, it opens as normal. Once it opens, it's good to go. And I find a lot of these fun and interesting because they don't necessarily break the game, right? Like that's a very fun thing that you can just add to any Into the Dark that will help, right? Or just make something different. Like if competitive is kind of like getting stale for you, perhaps throw in a mission rule that you make yourself, right? Or steal one of these.
Roll for jumps. That's the honesty.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We have a high pressure zone. So subtract 2 inches from all ranged weapon that have range X. And blast and torrent get -1, right? So that one's pretty fun. It's pretty exciting. We have low gravity, which I've said this before. 6-inch jumps horizontally or 2-inch jumps up. We have oxygen leak. So all flamer weapons gain lethal 5 and the range of a flamer increases by 2 inches.
Nice.
Which is exciting. We have warp turbulence, which is roll a d6 at the start of each turning point and the effect below happens. So 1 or 2, 1s are retained as normal successes. On a 3 or 4, attack dice of 2 or 5s must be rerolled. And on a 6, attack dice less than a 6 cannot be retained as critical successes. This one might be the most annoying, but also the most fun. Who knows?
I think that's really cool.
Jagged hatchways is something similar. If you go through a hatchway on a 1, you take D3 damage, right? Because maybe it's collapsing or something. And then we have unstable gravity core, which is our last mission rule. On a 1 or 2, operatives have a 4-inch move stat regardless of other rules. On a 3 or 4, there's no effect. And you would roll this dice at the beginning of every turning point. And on a 6, your operatives gain fly. That's very long wording for it, but that's essentially what happens.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting. And the fun thing is, in my opinion, when you add cards to the game, you can't overcomplicate a map, right? Because it's just like, okay, we're going to add this singular mission rule to this map, right? And you can only make something so complicated based off of a small, tiny card. Giacomo, what do you think about these mission rules?
They're great because I like the simplicity of mission rules. Anything that requires too much out of a player's, especially when they're paying to come to an event, I don't think actually works. So it's always important to write rules that are easy to understand in a card, and that's it. You shouldn't change too much more than what they already know how to play.
And I also believe in narrative stuff. Like, we have a couple people that are like, oh, we don't like narrative because we don't like to learn on the spot about this thing. So some of the surprises. So I believe in publishing some narrative rules beforehand. While you want to keep some stuff secret, mostly the narrative of like the story itself.
Right.
It's good to have a lot of these rules out in the open so that players aren't like, oh gosh, how does the Star Screamer work? You know, maybe they've read it so that they're like, okay, I know I'm probably going to play on this board at some point in time. So let me just become familiar with the rules so I'm not reading for 15 minutes of like, how does this actually work?
Yeah, have like a library of all your MPO cards at the back of the pack or something, or a
Something,
PDF that
right.
someone can download. And then, you know, after the fact, other people can play with them, as you said, people who want to play along at home have access to those cards as well. So you know.
Yeah.
If you give them the information, that's on them for not looking at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do expect players to not always look at things, which is why it has
Very
to
true.
be as simple as learning on the day of. And I'm not immune from it. I've definitely gone to tournaments and not read packets, you know, and I had to learn on the spot. So
I'm literally running a narrative campaign at the moment, and I have an entirely optional rule of environmental modifiers that people can roll randomly for each mission, re-rolling anything that they've already had in previous games. And I'm very certain that it's only me playing with it.
That's fair. That's fair. There has to be, and the fun thing about narrative is that there's so much untapped potential when Games Workshop doesn't give us a strict thing to follow, right? Like, we can, like, the world is our like, everything is about creativity, right? Like, we pride ourselves here at Squad Games for being creative and trying to push stuff. Like, LVO, we do our own map packs, right? Even though there's a bunch of people in Poland or Spain or other places that don't particularly like custom map packs because it might shift the balance for numbers or something. But you know, there's a lot of people that are just like, man, do I want to play on map 6 of Volcus again?
no, you get bored of that.
Yeah, and like, I think that's one thing that narrative can really get out of people, where you can still play, you know, competitively, but it's just kind of like finding the right thing that fits for you. Just like a D&D campaign, you have to find the right DM that fits right for you, right?
But just like a D&D campaign, everyone loves a homebrew campaign.
You're right. You're right.
You can play the modules if you want, but you kind of know what's coming if you've done it once.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that we've gone off the script quite terribly. I have to go back and see if there's
There was a
anything that...
script?
I know it's very impromptu. One thing, since GW really hasn't released anything, I wanted to bring up is I'm not against them releasing like building blocks, and then people who maybe don't want to necessarily design from zero can at least implement them in a certain way, right? Like if they did decide to release, what was the one they did for Jungle in the White Dwarf, right? They had special rules. So if you could just kind of take some of those ideas and put them into your game, however you're playing, whatever map you're playing, then that's at least something, right? So it changes up the way you'd play. And that's really, what are we doing if not just changing the way we play with narrative, right? It's creating a different way to play it. So I'm not against them releasing like a small book, or heck, if they just do the White Dwarf again and just release little rules that players can start implementing, which encourages them to start thinking outside of just the normal way of playing. And I think that's very important.
Just to throw one other thing out that we've just launched in our last podcast that I I, I think is pretty interesting as an idea is it's what I've called war goals. So this is a kind of a little bit of Spec Ops light, if you will.
Okay.
So each faction, the idea is, I think we've got 6 or 7 different ones, but we're going to have one for every faction in the game, every bespoke faction in the game, where you get a thematic goal that you have to achieve over 6 games, and um, and there's a little narrative every couple of games. You get a little bit of narrative saying how you've done, and it is admin light. So it's either things that you're recording anyway, like kills and VPs, or it's very minor thing you have to do. And to give you an example, so what my inspiration was this: when I played Blooded back in Spec Ops era, I had a thing where I assumed my guys were loyalist, and I wanted to know if they would turn to chaos by the end of the sort of 6 games. Um, and yeah, you literally do how many blooded tokens did you use against how many VP did you score, and and over 6 games you can find out whether you turn to chaos.
That's
Um,
cool.
Space Marine Scouts. The idea here is: do you become a full brother, or do you get turned into a servitor? Um, and to do so, you've got to play all 6 tac ops of your archetype, and you've got to score victory points in each of them. And if you don't score enough, I'm afraid it's servitor life for you. Or do you become a full brother of your chapter, which
You
would be
didn't
pretty
collect
cool.
all your badges. Sorry.
All your scout badges. For Corsairs, it's how many more VP or less VP that you score uh, than your opponent. So it's a bit like spread betting. And this is how much plunder you found in your travels. And again, each as you progress, you can see every couple of games you can see how you're doing. Anyway, if this is of interest to anyone, it's a little thing you can do with a team over 6 games. It's a bit of
Love it.
fun. You can do it in match play. You don't have to do any.
Yeah,
There's
there's
no
nothing
massively special rules.
mechanical or rules based about it. It's pure thematic lore in your head.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Anyway, so if that's interesting, we've got it on our Discord. And I'm kind of looking for people to play test some of these at the moment. So, yeah.
There's going to be tons of people hopefully coming to your Discord for it. Now, you guys also have, I would love to include a link to your guys', you guys have a store, like, or I don't know if that's what you would call it, but it's like,
An outlet.
it's, there you go, an outlet for your narrative packets that you already come out with, right? Or other features, if you're very into narrative and you really want to do some more stuff, or even if you're not, where can they go to help you guys out in funding some, maybe a screen with some video stuff? Like how can people help you guys out to make your events better? Or your lives better?
They can go to goodoldcoffee.com/once upon a kill team, where they will be able to find all of our previous event packs. I release them the day after we host the event for the first time, so that people can play along at home. And I think we've had quite a few members in different communities. There's a group over in Singapore that have been playing along pretty much as we've been doing the events. We've also got some objective tokens. We've got cheat sheets for each of the factions, and we've also got our Spec Ops Light rules up there as well.
And somebody
And many
in
more to
Spain
come.
liked one of our campaigns enough that they translated it into Spanish
Yeah.
for us, and then sent us the
Oh.
translation. I love
That's
this
amazing.
community.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of my favorite narratives, and I would love to do this for Repentant Station. So we're going to be running a Repentant Station narrative for our local community, 36 players, in January, February, and March. It's going to be 3 rounds for 3 months. And we'll have a little bit of a different ending so that people can play more games, yada, yada. But hopefully, the goal is to do something for like Battle for Medusa 5. Is anyone old enough or been around long enough to know what Battle for Medusa 5 was?
Is that
Strangely enough, no.
is that where they had the international community all weigh in on the same campaign?
Yes, and you could play battles and upload your battle results to each individual game. And me and my friends would just go and we'd play like 2 games every Saturday of 40K. And we'd be like, oh, Eldar keeps winning. Haha, take that. You know, didn't matter.
Is that what they did for
Dark
when
Imperium.
Leviathan dropped as well?
I think so, yeah.
Similar, but Battle for Medusa 5, I think, was like a 2 or 3 month long thing. And every month you could see like if Xenos, Imperial, or Chaos was winning. And I think this is when they dropped the Battle from Akraj box, which I think was 5th edition,
That was
40K.
fifth, yeah.
And you could upload your results and then it would affect like who would win Medusa 5. And it was one of my favorite things that Games Workshop has ever done because it was so community driven.
That
And
is
I-
nice.
Yeah, and it's just they've never done anything since like that since, except for Leviathan, which was
They tend to do it for 40K more than anything else.
That was just measuring wins or losses though.
yeah,
between
that's yeah.
the factions in the box.
And who's gonna get their models first?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
I liked
It was
that it did
Tyranids.
matter. It
Yeah.
mattered.
yeah, it was cool. There was a real world consequence. We got Tyranids first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I can pair up with what's the guy who makes the app?
That'd be Mr. Jason.
Jason.
Yes.
He makes a Kill Team app, and which is
That is,
beautiful.
Kill Team cards, KT cards.
Yeah, KT
On
cards.
iOS only so far.
Yeah, iOS only. Hopefully, if
We've got KT cards in the Discord as well.
oh yeah, hell yeah. So he does the Emperor's work 100%. His app is beautiful. We're going to work with him to pair up and have some of these cards go out, you know, live and stuff like that for the event as well. But like the goal, I think, if he can get it to Android, would be really cool to pair with some kind of an app so that we could track wins and losses between, you know, the different teams that maybe people can select, right? And then say what happens to the Repentant Station depending on like what happens. You know, I think that would be a really easy way to do it. You know, I wouldn't want to go. We could do it through our website too. I'd have to become a lot smarter. You know.
So
than
I
am
think
currently.
he was talking about some functionality where you can, on the Spanish hosted Kill Team game tracker, you can find online who you're playing against. So you could implement the same functionality. You could find who you're playing against, but also in a drop-down menu say which campaign or event system you're playing in. And then that would automatically log that into whatever CVS or Excel sheet or whatever.
Cool.
And tot up the scores. You could update the Google sheet with that, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing that we could possibly work with Jason on. And I think it would be a really cool thing, hopefully, to try and make it as worldwide as we can, you know, for the 3 months. Just having people playing, you know, and being like, no, the Tyranids must win, you know. Yeah, there's a couple of those kinds of people, you know, pointed at my wall, which is weird.
I mean, the Tyranids are going to win. I don't know why this is even a discussion.
They are the end game.
Yeah.
You guys are just
Yeah.
rearranging the chairs on the Titanic here.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We all know what's coming for us. You know, it's just how long can we wait? It's like us in California. You know, how much longer do we have to wait for the big one?
Earthquake to happen.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
earthquake's going to happen one day.
We've been saying that for years now.
Yeah, but today is not that day.
I was in middle school when we were saying that.
And they keep saying, you're overdue for a giant earthquake, you know, and
They haven't got us to pay the bill yet.
not yet.
Sometimes in the UK, it's a little blustery.
Oh, yeah?
That's as bad as it gets.
Sometimes it doesn't rain.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like California.
We could use
Sometimes
some more
we're in
rain. Yeah, we
a
could use some
year-long
more rain.
drought, you know? They're just like, oh, and then
we have no creatures that are going to eat us, kill us, or poison us. It's a fantastic country.
Sounds pretty
I
great.
recommend it.
Yeah, so I think we're going to round out the episode. But before we go, I wanted to address something from our last podcast. Okay. Now, we our last podcast was a tier list on what was a good beginner team. Okay? And I posted this to Reddit, right? And we all know how awesome Reddit is, you know? Just because I haven't done it in a long time, you know, like I was like, maybe it'll be different, but hey, we posted there and 99% of the people, instead of being like, hey, this list looks really cool or anything like that, everyone just focused on one team that we put in S tier. And I'm here to defend myself. Okay. We said Mandrakes were S tier for beginners. And everyone said that reverse saves and being in shadow and all these rules are too difficult for a first time player. Okay. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with Reddit or do you guys not care? You know, or like what is your guys' thought? Where's Mandrakes on your beginner friendly list? And then I'll defend myself.
Be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I've played Mandrakes a whole lot of one time ever, and that was in the last edition.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, my view is, I mean, the other thematic. I mean, we just in our last podcast we discussed Bad Aldari, and we love them thematically. We think they're fantastic, as well as cabals and all that. But yeah, the team. I thought it was complicated, but I've only got one game, and I didn't even play them myself. So, Sean, what's your opinion?
Don't do me like this, because we're like an expert, Jason. I also had one game against the Mandrakes, and I remember being told a lot of stuff and then losing.
That's fair. That's typically how they work.
But in my head, you had a similar point that Harlequins weren't a good team because they taught you the game wrong.
Yes.
And Mandrakes interact so peculiarly with a lot of rules interactions that I think they might fall under the same category.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
There's
And
nothing
the
wrong
thing
with that.
is, I love that people think differently, right?
should.
We're all thinking outside of a box. We're not all inside the same box, right? That's my favorite thing about Kill Team, right? Is having a different opinion than someone else, right? It helps galvanize my thoughts, right? Giacomo, why do you think that they're S tier? Or do you now agree with Reddit? And do you think that they should be dropped to a lower tier?
I totally agree, but that was more of a kind of thinking about it after everyone kind of mentioned it. Because originally I went into the idea of like, you know what? There's only 9 models. You get it all in one box. And when it comes to cost, that was pretty much it. Like, it wasn't that expensive to start. I didn't really think too much extra about the rules, so that was on me for not bringing that up. And yeah, there, like you mentioned, it's definitely one of those that sort of teaches you it a little differently than you normally do. So I would have to probably drop them lower.
Okay, that's
Yes.
fair. That's fair. Giacomo has changed his mind. I have not. I am here for the Emperor. Wait.
No.
For Lilia.
Is that for Dark Eldar, right?
One of them.
Wait. Okay.
For
Whoever
Jazar.
answers in your prayers.
Yeah.
I can give you a for instance example where they caused a bit of controversy. So at one of our events, I think it was the Into the Depths events. So one of the things we do at ours is because it's always pretty rough if you roll 3 1s, 3 or more 1s, or your opponent rolls 3 or more 6s in one go. And that always feels rough. So what I do is I go around with a box of little mini chocolates. So if you roll 3 1s, just to soften the blow, you get and I call this a Jason special. And if your opponent rolls 3 6s, you also get a little chocolate. But we had the case where somebody was playing Mandrakes and the opponent rolled 3 1s. I can't remember, whatever it is, the save.
Yeah, that's the
saves
save. That's the
reversed.
critical saves. Yep.
And it caused confusion because it was like one side was rolling 1s and was happy.
Who gets the chocolate? That's the
Who gets
dilemma.
That's
That's
fair.
the question.
Yeah,
That's
who gets-
fair. That's a difficult rule. That sounds like Kill Team English is to blame, right? Rather than any kind of rollings, right? All right. So I will address it because a lot of times I also like to straw man things, right? Even if I'm wrong, right? I will do it, right? But somebody was immensely mean on Reddit. They told me to touch grass Okay, that I was like, yo, I'm a boomer. You can't. I literally touch grass every day. You know, I have a 2-year-old, so I made a video to respond to this, and I would like to play it. You guys won't hear it, and then I'll kind of go into my own thing, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, you're here for some drama now. All right, ready? Ready?
Yep.
Okay. It's really awkward without any music. I'm not gonna lie. That was really awkward. But there is music to it. Now, the reason why I think Mandrakes are a good beginner team is firstly, you just need 1 box.
Right.
Secondly, there's only 5 models to memorize, and one of those models is a warrior model, right? So you really only have to memorize 5 profiles. They do have some interesting and exciting rules, right? Which are reverse saves, which is sometimes even more simple than actually rolling. You just have to remember to tell your opponent, right? And their shooting is actually really good because of it, right? They're actually a decent shooting team. They also have an ability to move around the map with shadows, right? And normally in the last edition, I would say it would be really difficult just because there wasn't as much heavy. But because we play on Into the Dark and there's a lot of shadow, and we play on Volcus, which is basically nothing but heavy, right? You can pretty much teleport wherever your model may need to be. The other thing about this team is that they have infiltration and they have recon. They can plant beacons basically better than any other team outside of maybe Farstalker Kinband. They also can take what's it called, implant into teams that aren't great in the melee, or they can take the snapshot ability, right? What is that one called? Wiretapping? Not wiretapping, the other one.
It is wiretap, isn't it? Or gather surveillance?
Gather surveillance.
Gather surveillance.
Yeah.
So they can just teleport at the end of an activation, take a picture of your guy, and score a point for TAC Ops. So they're really good at TAC Ops. They also have an ability that they can, if you pay for it, you can dash out of, you can do out of activation dashing, right? Which you can move out, attack somebody, and then out of activation dash. Let's see here. They also have an ability that you can pay for that allows them to change their orders. So they have an order manipulation ability, right? So like if you go out in the open and you attack somebody, you can then flip your model back to conceal, right? So you can keep some of your models more safer. Sure, they are a little bit more to learn, right? I will say. And I will say they have the same elf problem as all elves. Once they start falling off, they can start to crumple, especially into some of the S-tier power teams, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. If you're playing into a better opponent, you're going to have a hard time anyways, right? In my opinion, I think that because they're great at TAC Ops, because they're great at killing things in both melee and in shooting, right? Because they have unique flares to different things. Sure, they teach you how not to roll dice in shooting, right? But they're mainly a melee team.
Okay.
They have other ways to keep themselves safe. They have other ways to move around the table that typically other teams don't have access to, right? So they can, you can say that that might teach you bad habits, sure, right? But, you know, I think memorizing these small amount of operatives to memorize other rules is a little bit easier. Do they deserve to be an S tier? Maybe not. Maybe they deserve to be an A tier, you know, in my opinion. But hey, you know, I think that's the best thing is like, instead of just telling somebody, hey, you're wrong, you know, or instead of, because to be honest, I don't think anyone in Reddit actually watched our video, maybe a couple. And they'll never watch this video either. They might see my touching grass video when I release it as a YouTube short.
It's gonna go viral.
Thank you. I hope it does. I can't wait. I'm gonna send that video to you guys after we get done with this video and I just want to see what you guys think when you guys can listen to it.
perfect.
Right. But I think the team is relatively simple, but maybe not for everyone. Some people like to unga bunga up the table with Felgor or Space Marines, right? But some people, like all elf teams, you have to stay back a little bit, which is actually better for this edition. You kind of want to counterstrike. You want to kind of it teaches you the right play style for this current edition of approved ops. And if I changed anyone's mind, awesome. If you still think I'm dumb, that's cool too. I will go touch more grass. No problem. No problem.
You can make as many videos as you need.
I'm sure that will not be the only touching grass video I make in my
I
life.
hope it isn't.
My wife helped me with that one.
Now that you've described your view on the Mandrakes, I can see that they interact with nearly every single core rule at some level and manipulate it. So if you are learning, it makes you think about all the rules that us as well-learned players by this point probably take for granted. And probably are playing a little bit wrong.
Definitely.
And that's fair. They also have a 7-inch move, which is
nice.
Yeah, dwarf teams I find harder to play because they have a 4-inch move. And if somebody, heaven forbid, somebody places a great razor wire.
I struggle with anything with 2 APO. What do you mean I can't move, dash, and do something?
That's fair. That's fair. It's like the D&D problem. What do you mean I can only move? I can't move, attack, move? Like, what's going on? I'm not a fighter? All right, cool. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on. Hopefully it was fun,
Had a lot of fun, thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that you guys want to touch on before we jump out?
I think we've covered so much already.
And it's nearly midnight your time, so.
Well, yeah, just shy of. I think if we're going to have any further discussion, we should probably just all meet up again.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
I love
against
this.
it.
It was amazing.
Just to reciprocate. So we have dedicated guest questions when we have content creators on our podcast, and if they answer any of the questions wrong, we throw them off the show. So
Amazing.
No jeopardy there.
Yeah.
But you're very welcome to come on.
Not set a precedent, but no one's yet to be thrown off, so you could always be the first.
Ooh.
Hopefully it's 2 plus 2. Or maybe you're gonna ask me the Mandrake question and I say S, and then I get thrown off anyways because
It's going to be an obscure rule interaction. Like, how does this work?
Actually, G for grass.
I like that. I like that. Before we do our shout outs, I just want to see if anyone has talked to us in our stream, and they haven't. We're doing this in the middle of a Sunday,
yes,
on a holiday weekend, so no one's watching. That's okay. They will be able to watch another day. Matthew Alasana has said that he plays Rekkas himself, and he said that you have a Rekkas team that were special. He specifically requested to see your team, so perhaps you can show them off here, or on our Discord, you can show off a couple pictures, just for him,
Just for him.
Just for him.
I will rejoin your Discord,
thank you.
I will post up some photos.
Appreciate it.
My Rekkas I made out of Age of Sigmar Uruk boys.
Oh.
So they're all like the brutes and the ragers. So they're all running around in roughly beaten iron armor or barely covered in anything at all.
Bare chested.
Yeah.
They look awesome though. Yeah. Show them off.
Bare chested.
Gee, is there anything else you want to talk about? I kind of took over a lot of this episode just because I've been talking a lot about
No,
it.
you were sharing the narrative. That's totally fine. No, I gotta get my points across. So
Yeah?
I feel pretty good.
Okay, just making sure.
I always do.
Just making sure. You don't need a Kamehameha me off the table?
No.
Okay. All right, cool. Is there any shout outs that you guys want to do before we do ours?
This is when we
On
don't
the
have
spot.
anyone
This is my
do.
favorite thing.
I want to thank my mum, my director,
I like that.
my partner.
If anyone hasn't listened to any of our podcasts before, which is statistically probable, You can find us on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. Just look up Once Upon a Kill Team. You don't have to listen to us in any order. If it's latest, it's probably more relevant, but they're all based around a different topic, so just pick one that you like the sound of.
Amazing. Amazing.
And if they do listen to your podcast, where can they find you? If they want to learn more about you guys.
Yeah, of course. Jason, go on. You're our social media guy.
Yeah, we're on most of the socials as Once Upon a Kill Team, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. We're not on Twitter. We don't like that one.
That's fair. That's fair.
You can email us at onceuponakillteam@gmail.com.
Fair.
Cool.
Nice.
Or
And
join
also,
the Discord that we've been raving about.
There you go.
I've also seen, which I will have to join. I am not a part of it yet. Interesting. I've seen one of you sent me a link to your Instagram and showed me all of your amazing conversions.
Yeah, that was me.
Which, just making sure.
Cool.
Absolutely phenomenal. I loved them. Absolutely loved them. G, you just wait until you see them.
I'll see him.
We will try and put all of that in the show notes for our YouTube listeners and our Discord listeners. G, do you have any shout-outs?
Of course, you can join the conversation by leaving a comment in this video, or if you're listening to it from a podcast, you can join us on our Discord. That's the Squad Games Discord. You can let us know what you think about narrative, what you like to do if you don't like just playing the traditional way. Let us know about that. Check out the Hobby Highlander on YouTube as well as some of the extra battle reports. We're on Twitch, so we usually try to do that most Tuesdays, unless we're busy for a tournament or something. And speaking of tournaments, well, we got the AVTT coming up. That is June 21st and 22nd here in Santa Clarita, California. Tickets are available now at the squad-games.net website. You'll see that under events, so you can pick those up. Take 3 of your buddies with you. You'll have a good time. And thank you to all the Patreon members. You help us make this happen, and it helps us do a little bit more. We really appreciate that.
Thank you for both of our wonderful guests for coming on and making such an excellent episode. I want to thank you to Reddit. I was able to make free content off of it. No matter how touching grass how much touching grass I do. I never would have thought about our the Gladiator soundtrack going to it. I also want to thank, the Kill Team community. Thank you guys for being so awesome and thinking differently, right? We always want to promote not groupthink here. We want to promote free thinkers so that we can continually develop and grow the scene in a creative and interesting way. And we hope that we see you at one of our events. And if you don't, hopefully you go to one of their events. And, events are great in this day and age.
Go to your local events.
Yeah, why not, and if you live too far, there's always TTS.
There's always TTS.
Yeah. So, until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, so do we have a cold opener for this one?
It's a 3-day weekend here.
It is a 3-day weekend
Yeah.
here. We have a Memorial Day weekend, which symbolizes what?
If I remember, actually, I don't really know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
Great
like-
American citizens.
Yeah, exactly.
over
I'm
here.
not.
Love it.
Yeah.